Welcome everybody, and we're going to be we've had a long think around how to present this, and we wanted to present something which made sense but it was also useful. So rather than just us telling our story for the sake of it, we're hoping that we've managed to pull out some things which we believe will be useful for you, so that in your own organizations, whether you're working on your own, whether you're in a small company or in a huge corporation, we hope that some of these things can help you and your organizations moving forwards in a way that it's helped us. So the way that we've split this out is into 3 sections. So I'll introduce the first one, and then I'll leave Sam and Rafa to look at the other 2, but we'll kind of chip in like a bit of a conversation throughout the 3 main sections. And then we're also going to be doing a bit of an interactive session. Would it be AWA if it wasn't interactive? Highly likely not. So we're going to, at the end of each section, or during that section, we'll break into Zoom breakout groups, and we'll explain at the time all about what we're going to do there. We won't be in them for long, but it'll be a chance to explore some of the things going on. And then what we're hoping to do is collate some of that information back from the groups using chat, so that we're able to, all of us, get a picture from the whole group. So we can have a shared model around these 3 things about what's actually happening for you all right now. So hopefully there will be multi-threaded learning this evening, so that we can benefit not only from our story, but also from you all as well. So the 3 sections that we'll be looking at are, the first section is coping and survival. So we've just had this huge shift. And so we went through a stage of coping and survival. So that's the first topic. Then we'll be moving on to staying connected, sharing knowledge, and experimenting. So that was like phase 2, staying connected, sharing knowledge, and experimenting. And then the third step we'll be looking around is leadership. And we'll be exploring around appropriate leadership for complex adaptive, or for crisis and complex adaptive environments. So to start with, that first section, we'll be looking at coping, survival, and thriving. So I'll start off with a little story about what it was like for me and what I feel that AWA has gone through. So AWA, as you may be familiar, has been trading for 5.5 years. We've been running meetups. We're very community focused. We have a range of training programs, training courses that we run, and we also have clients who we go in and coach at various different levels, from team to enterprise leadership teams. And so we contribute to all these things. We also contribute to various other efforts around the agile and organizational change space. For example, IC Agile, Disciplined Agile, the LESS community, coaching communities. There's a whole bunch of different relationships we have. Now, when COVID-19 hit, and the lockdown was put in place across the world, then we saw a couple of quite a few changes. The first thing that we saw was a massive instant reduction in our sales and our customer experience, in our customer engagement. So pretty much all of our clients immediately wanted to put everything on hold. So just as a quick note, Charlie and Rafa, if you wouldn't mind letting people in as they come in, there's a few people waiting. And so in terms of ticket sales for classes, so we host, or we used to host, in-person training classes. And mostly when we coach, we go into organizations as people going in there. And we have always done remote coaching and a little bit of training, but it's nearly all in person. So everybody wanted to either cancel, didn't want to pay for tickets, 90% reduction in sales. So I know from talking to other agile organizations and also the wider world at large, this is not an unusual scenario that everyone has. Well, it's very unusual in general, but not many companies have faced this. So instantaneously, we've gone from a successful growing business to somewhere where we have a 90% drop in sales. And this was something which was obviously, as a CEO of a company, is a very scary place to be. We have staff, we have commitments, we have a very nice office space in London. All these kind of things made it a big shock. So so what we did to kind of combat that was, first of all, take a deep breath. It's like, what does this mean? It's so easy to panic and think, oh my God, we need to shut everything down, stop the cost. And certainly those kind of thoughts went through my mind. But instead, what we thought is that the instinct that came to me was, how do we need to get everyone together on this. How do we co-create our future together? And so the first thing was around survival was, don't panic, take a deep breath, step back, and we got everybody together. And when I say everybody, we looked for our trainer community, we looked for our associates and our core staff. And we started holding meetings around what could we do about this. And we started thinking about how we would prioritize what actions we could take. Now, if you think about Cynefin, we've been thrown into the chaotic. And we know from chaos that we have to act now, and that we need to move our situation as fast as possible into one of the other problem domains. So what we did is we swarmed around the problem. We got everybody together and we said, what the hell are we going to do? Because we've got to do something, right? Either that or we go out of business. We've got to do something. So we swarmed together and we said, let's leverage the creativity of everybody we can, as many people as we can. And we did it in several sessions. And we tried to combine people where we could to get different viewpoints in different ways of being. Of course, we had to do this through Zoom. So luckily, we've got some pretty clever people, and we happen to be in a situation where, as a company, that what we advise on is complex adaptive systems. When we don't know what's going on, we advise on companies on how to deal with uncertainty. So we've got all these tools, we know all these tools, probably most of you on this call know all these tools for dealing with complex adaptive environments. So we want to move to that space as quick as possible. So what we did is we realized that, we swarmed, we got as many ideas as possible, and then we said, right, what is the gap between where we are now and where we need to be? And we realized we didn't even know where we needed to be. Do we go to an online training company? Do we quieten everything down? Do we do something completely different? Do we come up with some crazy ideas, selling AWA t-shirts? I don't know, what could we do? So any ideas were welcome. And what we realized quickly is that we had lots of good ideas. We had loads of stuff we could do, but we needed to prioritize. So we very quickly decided on different angles and different things we could do to prioritize the work so that we weren't task switching and running around like headless chickens. Because the moment we start running around task switching, we're going to do a lot of work and get no results. We've seen this in so many organizations. Let's not be one of them. So what we did is we very quickly prioritized. We said, right, who do we put first? Well, of course, we want to put our customers first. So how do we choose this prioritization? So we went right back to our values. We went back to what was important to us. What is it that made AWA successful in the first place? Because we want to do more of that. And we realized that what made us successful was the quality, the relentless quality, and being on the cutting edge. Because that's what AWA does. We're on the cutting edge and we always look for quality. We're not the cheapest. We don't make things to be just the most easily installable systems that you can think of in an organization to get stuff through the door. You know, they're the other two selling points that you could go on. What we do is we look for quality, we look for results. So we knew that whatever we were going to do, we had to hold those values strong. We couldn't just hack out some online class to get it out there. That was just not going to be acceptable for us. So we set that bar high. And then we started prioritizing around what do our customers need? So we started asking them, what is it that people want? We knew that we had some classes that were coming up quite soon that were in class. So we thought, how can we get those classes online as soon as possible? And so what we did is from the swarming space, we allocated specific priorities to specific individuals or groups of people so that they could focus on one thing only, so that we're not task switching. So from this swarming group, we went into small teams to focus on the highest priority work and get those things done. I mean, all of this kind of like feels like an agile handbook to me, but basically that's what we did, and it worked. And so we focused on various courses, various classes. We looked at what our client engagements were. We spoke to our clients about what their problems were, and but we made sure we weren't dotting around on loads of different things. once we had got our classes, the immediate classes ready to train online, we, well, through that process, what we realized is that it wasn't a case of just swapping out stuff to be online. We had to actually revisit every class and every module of every class to see how we could adapt this so that it would be just as impactful, so that people would have that inner transformation on the classes as well as just knowledge acquisition. How do you get that through a screen? And so we really had to revisit the tooling. We had to learn so much about tooling. We'd already luckily been on a bit of a journey with this, because we'd already planned to take some classes online at the sort of middle of last year. So we'd already learned a bit about tooling. We'd already done some online coaching. So we weren't complete newbies at this. But we did have to still go on a steep learning curve. So we examined lots of tooling, and what we did is we tried the real options approach. So what if we run two things at once? If we'll see how it goes. When one thing falls away because it's not as good, we're left with the winner. And so we looked at this, and we came up with some tools. We realized that we examined things like Mural and Mira and various other things, whiteboarding tools. We looked at all of these things, played around with them, experimented, found that the best one for us in this case was Mural. We decided to go with that. We looked at Zoom, we compared it with Teams, we compared it with Skype, we compared it with other things, and we found that Zoom actually still is the best option. So we looked at all these different things, very rapid swarming around these different things, and that's kind of where we went. And we'll go into how we communicated and learned that in stage 2. So as a summary of all of that, what we did is we took a deep breath. We swarmed around the problem. We very rapidly prioritized by sticking to our values and asking our customers. We chose the highest priority things, separated out into teams so that we were able to focus on one thing. We got that thing done, and then we got feedback. And then that's kind of how we got out of this panic situation into a complex adaptive situation. So I think that pretty sums up my experience of stage 1, from panic to complexity. Is there anything you guys wanted to add on your experience?
Yes, on my personal experience also, I'm an external collaborator with AWA, so I was already online because I was based in Portugal, and most people don't know this, but I fell in love with AWA's passion on training when I was an attendee almost 2-3 years ago, when I was searching for help in occupying a position that I was not ready for. So I went to London because it was the nearest place I could go. I'm in Lisbon. And I just literally told at the time, Simon, come and bring these courses to Portugal because I really feel we need this. So when all of this happened, if Simon came to everyone in the call and said, okay, you know the amazing transformative learning experience we have in the class? That is not possible online. Let's do the cheapest, easiest way now so that we can get some money. I would not buy into that because it wasn't that got me to collaborate with AWA in the first place. So becoming aware that that vision and those values were still in place, and we just needed to figure out how we were going to do it, just motivated me to, okay, I'm going to pull up my sleeves and we're going to work on this together because we are going to make it happen. Because I was also in a vulnerable position. Training was my biggest revenue, and going from 100% to 0 with a daughter and with a wife, with the house, it was really, really scary. So knowing that I was not alone in this and that everyone in AWA, internal or external, were in this together also made me feel safe and ready to move on.
That's a great point, Rafa, because I think that's something that really helped, because in time of such great uncertainty and we're all just not sure what's going to happen, everyone swarming together just massively increased our connection. Because, you know, we kind of take this a little bit for granted when we're in the office. You know, Rafa's there in Portugal, we speak to him on Slack, But actually everybody being, you know, face to face like this on Zoom, all of a sudden we've got networks of networks that are all connected together. And that increase in communication really helped, just like Rafa said, really kind of bring together this sense of safety, which of course is something we're quite used to doing in our classes, right? Creating this kind of game space or play space in which we feel safe so that we can be our best. And that is something we were able to really create for ourselves right in the beginning there, in those most unsettling of times.
Yeah. I feel closer to the AWA team now than I've ever felt before, which is crazy because I don't actually see you in person, whereas before we're in the office all the time, and I think it's been a real bonding experience, and I think that's because we have we've really opened up that space to say, hey, look, let's do what we do best, and let's just all the values and things. I really think it does come down to that. Looking at those values and saying and holding each other to account as well to make sure that we hold up to those values. I think that's been really valuable to me.
Simon.
Yeah.
Hey
Barry.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, good to see you.
I was just wondering whether you'd had any thoughts on whether you've seen this has been an opportunity for some people to also look at themselves first, as well as then look, you know, beyond themselves, like, you know, into their organisation.
Well, it's a fantastic question because I think probably anyone has done a lot of soul searching in this time. I can only speak for myself, and I know that I have certainly done a lot of soul searching. You know, you kind of ask the question, the 90% sales drop. Is it all over? What do I want to do with my life? Is it, you know, is this? Can I fight for this? You know, is it possible? Do I want to give up? You know, can I do something else? Should I just give up and go and live on a beach somewhere? And then you think, actually, apart from unless you're Rafa, we can't go and live on a beach somewhere because we're all in lockdown. And what I realized from this for myself, it's like, well, what do I want to do with my life? What is it that I want to do? And I looked at all the things and I thought, where am I best placed to help? What can, you know, that's kind of, my mentality. And I realized that I looked at all the different options, and something my girlfriend said to me, she said, well, look at all these key workers, look at how they're doing such an amazing job. These people who are the lowest paid people in society have come out and they're holding everybody up, and they're holding us to account in a way for the way that they're treated by society, not by us, but by society. And I thought, what can I do? What can I do to help? And I examined that and I thought to myself, do you know what? The best way I can help, what I know about is organizational change, making hundreds, if not thousands of people's working lives better. And it really did, I went through that whole cycle of re-examining what it was for me. And I realized that I was actually in the place where I needed to be, which was a reconfirmation of the mission for me. And all of this kind of went probably through my head in about an hour, but it was definitely an examining process. And I realized that actually I needed to try harder. I needed to work harder in this space because it allowed me to examine my relationship to the COVID virus as well. Is this an enemy? Are we fighting a war here against a virus, or are we actually fighting a war here against ourselves? And what I thought to myself was that actually this enormously powerful thing that's happening on the planet right now, we can leverage that power for doing good. We can leverage this time of complete chaos and change for doing something which actually we can leverage that for making change that's good. And that was kind of a real understanding of that. So I did a constellations around that whole process, my relationship to the COVID virus. And I got enormous power from that and thought we can leverage this. It doesn't have to be a disaster. This can actually be a huge force for good on the planet. Yeah, fantastic question. Thank you for that. Okay, so should we go on to the point 2? So we've got these 3 points. The first one, again, just to remind us, was this getting out of coping and surviving into thriving mode. So the next section we'll be going on to is, so then we wanted to stay connected. So we're all off in our teams. That's where we've left the story so far. We've gone off into our teams to work on these things. So what happened then? Rafa, do you want to take us through your experience perhaps of what went on next?
Yes. So as I said before, I felt empowered to do the work, because the sense that I got was, if I don't put the effort now, I don't know how I'm going to bring food to the table at the end of the month. And I was not even sure that we would have people coming to the online classes. As a matter of fact, I was not even sure if I believed that I was able to create the impact online that I was getting used to in the class. So I was really, really afraid of what the future may hold. And what held me together, what held me together was that empowerment on, this is not going to change our values, the way we do stuff. We need to just bring what we do best to the online world and hope for the best, which was the only thing that we could do at the time. So I remember that after we prioritized the classes we were going to work, me and David Lowe, that some of you may know, we got mainly connected and focused on the Agile Team Coach course. And of course, we had almost the entire team helping out with this, especially Matthew and Jan Inge from Norway. They would be so much into it. But me and David, we had the class scheduled. So we not only had our deadline, we just had limited availability to actually do it. I have a 3-year-old girl. David has 2 daughters. And as Simon said, our personal and professional life got mixed together. So our capacity was not the same as before. So we needed to work hard, but we needed to work smart, because we weren't online all the time. David is in Oxfordshire, so he's literally also pretty far away from me. And I remember we just got together, and Joinge was also in this initial call, and we literally did our backlog of tasks of what is going to take for us to bring the course online and to be ready to the course date. And after we aligned and synchronized all the tasks that we needed to do, we knew that we would have to trust each other that we would get the job done, because we didn't haven't had time to be constantly monitoring or sending messages, is this done, is this done? No, we needed to trust each other that we were going to get it done. So by sharing this vision of what we want to achieve as a whole, and then what we pragmatically want to do for this particular class, we were able to move ourselves away. And I was able to work whenever my daughter was taking a nap, or I was waking up at 6 in the morning to be able to work before she could wake up, or after she went to sleep at night. And I knew that I couldn't count on David being online to help me with anything, and he on the same also. So it was really good to have this initial swarm, and every time we had a doubt, we created a channel called Let's Get Online. And every time someone had a doubt or wanted to know something about Miro, Zoom, microphones, monitors setup, standing desks, how can you maintain your body through 8 hours a day during training? So any kind of doubts we had, we would throw in the chat, and we would have like 5 different answers from different people. And we had this constantly through this migration phase. Not a migration, because we revamped the class to get into online. And I felt much than before, because I'm not part of the, I was not in the office like Simon and Sam and the rest were. So I was already online. And I felt such a change in the connection with people online, and seeing everything together synchronously or asynchronously made me feel safe, made me feel safe. Like, I don't know if this is going to work out or not. I don't know if we're going to have people, but this moment right now, it's almost like the case study for what we teach during our classes. In the face of extreme uncertainty, you work together, you define your vision, and you work and try and improve on it. So the first version of the class, we literally stated, this is the MVP. We cannot do more. We don't have the capacity to do more. So let's focus on the minimum awesome participant experience that we can provide, and then we hope to improve for the next time. And this building process gave lots of learning, not only on the toolings, but how can we actually work amazingly well together online and asynchronously, not just synchronously. And this is something that we have been seeing with our clients, which is being online all the time is a heck of an effort, because now you don't even have the limitation of meeting rooms. So people are spending the full days in meetings. So when people work, they are all a click away of a Skype or a Zoom call. So we were able to build that asynchronous method of working, basically because we trusted each other. And Simon, when he came to us and said, this is happening, let's go in this direction, he trusted that we were going to be able to do it. I wasn't receiving Slack messages every day from Simon asking me, like, what is the status of the work? Like, did you finish the migration? How are you dealing with this? No, he trusted in us that we were going to do, mainly because we were all in the same problem. And after going through this phase of building the course, nothing beats the level of learning of going live. You can learn a lot while you are in the development phase, but nothing beats the excitement of going live. And for us was the first edition of, especially for me, the first edition of the ATC, the Agile Team Coach course. And as I said, I was afraid because I knew the impact the course had in the room. To be at the end of the online course and receive the feedback that we received, it made me realize that if you take advantage and leverage the existing potential and skills that you already have, that you find your unique selling proposition, that transformative factor that only you can give, you adapt it to online with the level of care that it's needed, you can create an impactful experience. It doesn't matter if it's just for a screen by a 24-inch monitor. It can really happen. And that made me feel so much safer. Like, okay, this is possible. We can actually do this. And there were some things on the online world that were even better than the physical world. For example, in the ATC course, it's purely focused on bringing the professional coaching skill set to the level that an agile coach can leverage to work with teams. And we have a lot of practice throughout the course. And we need to listen and to assess that the people are getting that mindset shift. In the room, sometimes I have 4 groups all speaking at the same time, and I have to focus like never before to be able to listen all of them and remove away the noise. Doing this on online, I'm literally 5 inches from everyone. So I can listen people so much clearly than in the room. I was able to give so much powerful feedback than before. So it's not all bad. And we realized that you can do things better online. For smaller groups, we saw and people share with us a deeper level of bonding that during in the room courses. So it was so great. I'm so grateful to be in this experience and to be able to see that what truly matters is the intent and the energy you give when facilitating or giving a training. The online limitations can be overcome with adaptation for sure, but it is possible, believe me. Anything that you would like to chip in, Sam, Simon?
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of add on to what you're saying there, Rafa, that the switch to online, I think we all battled our demons a little bit of our fear of what we were doing would work, because of course our training courses are just so interactive, and how would that work online? And yet, because of this thing of being so face-to-face, when we're face-to-face, that there is a greater deepening of connection within small groups, and just how powerful that is in really facilitating learning. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was also the cross-group communication, which was really amazing. Now, you already talked about this, Rafa, which I think, so I was working on the enterprise classes, and every time we ran a class, or every time Rafa ran a class, we would, or Sam ran a class, we would learn from that, and we'd immediately share everything we could back to the group, either on Slack or on a Zoom call, and we would constantly refine through experimentation. And every time anyone at AWA anywhere did anything, it would be shared back so that we'd all learn from it, take that if you chose to take it, and you would then move that forward. So it was not only experimenting with one product, anything that we learned, we were sharing back with the whole group, which was really key. So we've got the two stages. We've got the first step, out of crisis into complexity, and then we've got experimentation and sharing and making sure that everything we've learned comes back into the company as a whole, so that we're all learning rapidly as much as we can. So we've been talking for a while, and I realized that we didn't actually go into the breakout rooms at the end of the first point. So we're well overdue for doing some breakout room stuff. I would really like to hear from your points as well. So the way that we'll do breakout rooms is we're going to, I'm not sure who's actually organizing the breakout room from the logistics side of it. So one of us needs to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put, you're going to be in a group of about 4, depending on how it splits out. There'll be 4 people roughly in a group. And what we're going to ask you to do is really looking at how, based on the points that we've made in terms of sort of out of the crisis, we're looking at, it was values. It was our values that really helped us tie together. And the question that we've got for you is, your experience, have the experience that you've had in your companies, whether you're on your own or whatever you've been interacting with people, have those values, have your values, and has the company's values been upheld? And we're definitely not looking for specific companies' names or anything like that. We don't want to hear that, oh, my company XYZ Limited is awful. Right? We're not looking for that. What we're looking for is, how did you get through this? Was it kind of value-based? Was it just like hack it out there? What kind of thing was it that cohesed or made things work for you and your teams? Or conversely, what kind of experience have you had that hasn't worked, so that we can learn from it and we can kind of stay in the generic, because this is a public meetup, so just bear that in mind. And then the second part, which we can do at the same time, would be to discuss what kind of tooling, what kind of communication or experimenting, how did you get that learning and share it? How have you been learning in this time? So the 2 things to discuss are, have we adhered to our values, and what kind of things cohesed us together? How do we get out of chaos? Second thing is, how have we stayed in touch? How have we communicated? What kind of tooling, what kind of experiences have you had? And if you haven't had those experiences, that's totally fine. You can share that as well. So are we ready to go into breakout rooms? If you would like to, when we go into breakout rooms, if you would like to discuss these 2 things, come up with a few points. We're not going to ask you to talk because there's so many people, but you can put some bullet points into the chat window. And then after we come back from breakout rooms, we can have a look through them, so that hopefully we can learn from ourselves. So what we'll be doing is, so just to recap, we're going to be looking at, how do we get through out of the crisis, and how do we stay connected and learn? Okay, fantastic. So let's go into breakout rooms. You should see something there already. If you haven't already gone, click on the button and you will go into your breakout room. I can see lots of people are in breakout rooms now. If you can't find the button, you can click on manage participants and you'll see the button come up. So hopefully you'll be able to join your breakout room. If not, then if you're still here in a few seconds, then probably something's gone wrong, and then we'll help you individually.
they might be joined via audio.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's fine. So if you've got a problem, let us know. If not, then we'll just assume that you're okay. Wherever you are, Minstrel, with that background, I wish I was there because that looks really nice environment. Cool.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to join a breakout room, then feel free to click on the manage participants, and that should then bring up your breakout room. I think if you haven't already got it.
Thank you, Rafa.
Sometimes it takes sort of 30 seconds for people to come back out of breakout rooms. So we'll just wait for everyone to come back in. Nearly there. Good. So is everybody back? Do we know?
Yes, I believe so.
Good, fantastic. So if you would like to write some of the key points that you have come up with into the chat window, then we can start having a think about or read some of those things out. So the key points around how have we done in terms of getting out of the crisis? Did we look at values, those kind of things like we did, or was there something else? And then the second one was around how do we stay connected and keep learning? How do we keep experimenting? I think someone's trying to get in. Good. So whilst we're writing those, feel free to continue writing into the chat window, or start writing in the chat window. And whilst we're doing that, what we'll do is we'll go on to the third section and final section, which was around leadership, which Sam, if you would like to start us off on that, and then we'll come back to the things in the chat window. So feel free to keep writing if you want to.
Yeah, so I think one of the kind of misconceptions, at least outside of the Agile community, is that Agile leadership is, you know, kind of soft and, you know, cuddly and inclusive. And I think what we really see is how being in this unprecedented situation has really tested all of our leadership. And I think we see the things that Simon did that really helped. You can probably draw them out from what he and Rafa have already said. But there was this kind of clarity of priority and clarification of the roles of who was doing what. You know, Simon made it very clear what we needed to worry about and what we didn't. And one of the things that Simon really modeled well was strength of technical leadership. If you want someone to go and very rapidly sort out how to do something technical, Simon, with his coding background, is the best place to do that. And so playing to our strengths, you know, sharing information across the network, as Rafa and Simon have talked about, really, really helped. And I think one of the things that also massively helped, because we mentioned about how this was such a testing time, how there was so much fear and uncertainty. And even if, you know, we're normally quite robust of mindset, I think all of us have been on a bit of a roller coaster ride where being confined inside, not everybody finding it so easy to exercise or not, having our home life and our work life fused together, it's been very testing. And so one thing that Simon did that really helped was around definition of failure. Because of course we all care about doing a really good job. And I think you've got a lot of people with very high standards in the AWA family. And so it's easy when you're on your own, sitting in front of your own laptop in your own house, to disappear down the hole of the anxieties of your own mind. One of the things that Simon did, which really plays into this whole safe environment and safe to fail / safe to learn, is that he shared with us his definition of failure, which is just because you try something and it doesn't work out, that's not failure. A failure is giving up. And that was just massively, massively helpful. That's what made it safe to fail. And so I found myself kind of drawn back to the work of Brené Brown, who I think talks the best about vulnerability and authenticity. And so it's just this recognition, connecting to something Barry was saying earlier, right? His question is that the weight of leadership doesn't just rest on Simon's shoulders. We all are leaders, right? As agile coaches, leaders with a little L. But it's about us all taking responsibility from being a bit authentic, you know, showing up, talking about our struggles, not trying to make out like we're the best, we're fine, everything's perfect, when actually we're not sleeping well and we're driving ourselves into burnout. Being able to share a little bit of what we're really going through, that's also deepened our connection. And so also it's been our responsibility to not just focus on ourselves, but also focus on each other. So checking in bilaterally with each other offline, checking in with some of our team members that are on furlough, just to make sure that everybody is kind of doing okay. Because even though we have a super safe place in our check-in in the morning, you know the pressure. You know the pressure to have a bit of a stiff upper lip and to make out like everything's okay. But when you know each other and you see that someone's a bit off colour, that's where our personal leadership kicks in and where we check in with people. And then we can have like a little virtual coffee. I think it's really important making that time. And we've also seen that in patterns across the broader industry, right? Is that there seem to be two broad approaches out there. Either the approach that we have modeled, I think, in AWA, which is like, we're all in this together, let's figure it out. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I'm stuck. I just can't figure this out, help. And then there's the alternate, where we definitely see companies where the leadership have been triggered by the stress and who have reverted to command and control, and how stressful that can be for everyone. So I think, as we just have 1 minute left on our time, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, either Rafa or Simon in particular, around this topic of leadership with both a big and a little L.
Yes, as you were talking, Sam, I remember when we had a meeting preparing for this meetup, and I think it was Charlie, me, Simon, and you, and I had a crappy day, and I was trying to be focused on the call, but I just came out and said, you know what, guys, today is not a good day, so this is why my energy levels are like really, really low. And then Simon just said, your energy is low? It just seems like you're normal. And it felt so good to be able to put it out there that I wasn't feeling okay, and it was okay. And then he said, don't worry, Rafa, everyone has those days. I also have those kind of days. So you're here. Doesn't matter. Even if you weren't here and you weren't able to come, that's okay. We will be able to work it out. So having that safety of saying, I'm not okay. I don't feel good. I argue with my wife because we can't stand each other anymore. Like, I can't see her face anymore. Or I can play with my kids, or I cannot stop playing with my kids. So having that safety net, because we are out there most of the times. I don't know if everyone here is either a Scrum Master, Agile coach, or manager, or a team coach, or whatever. We are always trying to help other people. Who helps us? Who holds that safety net for us, since we are almost all the time holding that safety net for others? So it felt good to connect with each other of us in this position.
I also love David's lean coffee that he's doing. So if you're not an early riser and the half an hour of meditation with me is no good at 6:30, you can join David's virtual coffee at, is it 9 or 10? I think it's 10, isn't it, Rafa? Yeah, you can find the details on LinkedIn. Just look up David.
Yeah.
Love.
I will
10
post it
o'clock
on
is
chat.
definitely more my kind of time than 6:30 in the morning. That's each person has their own, don't they? Thank you for saying those things. It's very nice to hear that some of the things that I've done have worked. It's nice to have that feedback. So looking through some of the things here which everyone has written into the chat. Things like staying in communication, things like having coffee mornings, having connection, which isn't necessarily about work, with work colleagues, the sort of to make up for that, sort of where you can't just have a chat to somebody, hang by their desk, or meet them at the coffee queue or whatever, those kind of things. So one of the things that we've done, just to share a few more things about AWA, every morning we have a check-in. So an alignment call, sorry, where we have a check-in. So any of you who've been on any of our classes, you'll know the check-in protocol, where we check in, we say a bit about how we're feeling. So we do that every single morning, 5 days a week. We check in with each other and we align around what we're doing. This is not a status meeting. This is aligning around how we're feeling, what's going on for each other. Today we had lunch together. We had a call where we could have lunch, and you could have lunch if you wanted to. I dialed in for about 10 minutes or so, but it was just about connecting. There was no work talk, just connecting there. So I see some of those things here as well in the chat. So other things that I'm seeing in the chat here, fantastic thing here, putting people first. Like, what is a business if it's not about the people? Another thing that we've done at AWA, that I've done, as soon as this section is about leadership, is I have reached out to everybody I can think of who run similar businesses to us, who, and these are our competitors. These are people which I've known for years, running other businesses. I've got hold of them, got chatting with them, offering support, because even though they're our competitors, when it comes down to feeding your children, it's like, let's see what we can do together, and that's something which I've been busy doing, talking to as many different people in different companies as possible. And out of that, I've learned a huge amount about how other people are dealing with this too. And so different techniques that people have shared, how their businesses are doing, realizing that I and we are not in this alone. So there's some cool relationships about that. This is a great time for building relationships with others, both competitors and people that you collaborate with, who you already, perhaps people you haven't spoken to in a business sense. So I've really felt like I've done that as well. What else have we got here? Lots and lots of meetings. So this is something which also that I'm sure that we've all struggled with in terms of this time, having so many Zoom meetings. So thank you to have another one right now. This window that I'm looking into, which we're all looking into, we can come pretty sick of this window, right? And making sure that we have effective meetings that are facilitated well, that we've got clear objectives and outcomes, so that we don't end up waffling around about stuff. That's another thing that has really helped. And every Sunday night, I go through my calendar for the week and delete any meetings which I don't think are essential to our mission right now. And obviously I communicate to the people that we're having the meeting with, just making sure that we've got a consensus around, do we need this meeting? So I don't just delete them without speaking to anyone. I communicate with those people and say, hey, do we really need this meeting? Can we get rid of this meeting? And actually quite a lot of them, yes, we can, because there was stuff that was going on before this crisis. And so I've managed to clear a lot of my meetings out of the way, and then I could just really focus on the things that matter. Just looking through other things here, reaffirm personal and corporate values, making people stay connected, implementation of Slack, so tooling, getting the right tooling, safety again, putting people first, all these kind of things. This is fantastic. Decreasing unnecessary meetings, yeah, we talked about that. Prioritizing, making sure work planning meetings together. Yeah, brilliant. All these kind of things. So I think we've covered most of these other things on here. So yeah, and to Barry's point as well here, when he says, I wonder if this has helped more people to have the strength to say, I don't know. Well, I hope so. I think that certainly there's been plenty of times over the last few weeks when I've looked at everyone and said, you know what, I haven't got a clue what to do next. I don't know how we're going to work this out. I've got no idea. Let's brainstorm it. Let's figure it out together. And then of course we can run experiments. I don't have all the answers. No one has all the answers. So let's just figure it out together. So yeah, it's a fantastic point there. Okay, so I think that we've covered these 3 sections. So I'm going to just quickly summarize what we've done at AWA and to summarize what we've done. So first of all, it was crisis. And it was like, oh my God, panic, big deep breath, get everybody together and swarm. Out of that, we figured out what the prioritizations were based around our customers and our values. Once we had a list, we then broke up into groups and we gave people 1 task. It was a whip limit of 1. And we got that stuff done. And then we used that into the second phase to experiment. And through that experimentation, we made sure we were very well connected. We shared everything we learned about every experiment that we could do. So we brought all that knowledge back so that we could iterate and adapt as a whole company rather than lots of siloed teams. And then we looked at the leadership in terms of, well, thank you for sharing some of the things that I may have done well, but also little L leadership in terms of, I still think it was big L leadership. We're all leaders at AWA, and we basically treated everybody accordingly. And so that people within whatever space there are, every suggestion is welcome. Everybody can lead. There's no micromanagement going on. It's all about a safe space. It's about trusting people to get stuff done and really trusting them to get stuff done, not just saying it, actually letting people get on with it. We've had to reaccredit every single IC Agile class that we run with IC Agile to learn so that we can run them online and still give certificates. And so I've trusted people to rewrite that stuff, look at the IC Agile stuff and get on with it. I haven't been in anyone's face whatsoever, and that's really important. Creating that safety is vital. And so putting all these elements together, the safe environment, experimentation, learning, iterative stuff, I feel like we are, as a company, coming out the other end of this crisis. And we're not there yet. We've still got more experimentation to do. Nobody knows where we're going yet. Sales are definitely up, but we're not at the level that we were yet, but we're coming out of the crisis and we've done it together. So hopefully out of all this stuff that we've been sharing and all of the things that I'm seeing here in the chat channel, that we've got some ingredients here that we can take away. And if you're not already doing this, then these are things you could suggest you could do, or even if it's just reconfirming that what you are doing is a good path. So what we thought we could do now in the very last part of this call, this meetup, would be to kind of open this up for Q&A. And so again, we'll use the chat. So please feel free to any questions you've got, anything that you want to dig deeper on, or anything that you'd just like to share. Please stick it in the chat now. And then what we'll do is we'll read through some of those and say for the next 15 minutes, we'll do a Q&A based on as many stuff as that we can possibly get through in 15 minutes time box. And then we'll close the meetup. So please feel free to type stuff now into the chat. Anything you want to know more about or anything else, or stuff you want to share. Fantastic. So that's our 15-minute window for writing stuff down. And in the meantime, whilst we're waiting for you guys to put whatever you like in there, I should have a sip of wine, as it's the evening here. It's nearly the end of the day.
And just to say
Cheers,
as well, if you also, because we're really curious, like we're just on this cusp of it looks like lockdown might be lifted or start to kind of be lifted, and how long might that take or what might it look like, who knows. I'm just really curious, do you want to stay? Do you prefer remote working, or would you love to get back to the office?
So it's interesting because we've had a question from Claire. It says, do you think this crisis has changed how you will run AWA going forwards when we go back to normal? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I think that we will definitely continue to run online classes. There's pros and cons of online. There's pros and cons of being in the class. I think some things are better online, some things are better in the class. I think that we will definitely do more online. I think whether we all go back to the office again and we've got everyone in the office 5 days, that's to be discussed. That's a decision for everybody. So we've got that to make. But I've certainly really revisited some of the structures that I have in my own life and also AWA to see whether those are still valid anymore. You know, some things we take for granted and we just do these things 9 to 5. We do this 9 to 5 every week. Is that really valid? This came from a factory led where everyone had to be in the factory on a big long conveyor belt, where if someone wasn't there, the handle didn't get pulled. And if the handle didn't get pulled, the widgets didn't get made. And that's kind of, we do this 9 to 5. We know we need to collaborate together, we need to work together, but do we really need a 9 to 5? Do we need to work 5 days a week? Could we work 6? Could we work 3? You know, we've got all these different things to discuss, but whatever we do, we'll definitely do it together and figure out what works for a company. But everything's up for grabs. Okay, let's have a look at some of these other questions. Other people also, Rafa and Sam and Charlie, if you want to answer some of these as well. So what learnings do you have in terms of your client's leadership? So that's another one from Sue. Thank you for that question. What learnings do we have on terms of your client's leadership? So do you mean by that, I guess, what message have we got for leaders in organizations, maybe for our clients, but also for other in general? And I guess if that's the question, then what I'm imagining is, well, or not imagining, I think the lesson is pretty much following what we've said here tonight, which is it's all about people, and people make a business. So creating a safe environment and trusting people to get stuff done is really the message, the key underlying message for all of it. And it is interesting because different relationships do start coming out. You see people, you know, performers, you see people who are non-performers in this environment. Some people work well online, some people don't. And really, as a leader, we have to try to focus on the vision and give people the support they need to become the best they can in this new environment. Because, you know, some people thrive off that personal connection one-to-one. We've got to try to help them find that connection online, and that's not easy, and it's frustrating sometimes as hell when you've got shit to get done, excuse my language, we've got stuff to get done and someone can't cope because they're online. So what are we going to do with that? Do you want to bully that person? Do you want to make them get the stuff done? Do you want to micromanage them? Or do you want to actually take a coaching stance and go, right, how can I coach them? What support can I help them with? They were great in the office, but they're not so good online. So how can we build that connection with them? So treating people like human beings, even though it's frustrating, because you know, you as a leader, you know you've got problems they can't see. And they won't see those problems, and they'll see it, and different people see it from their own perspectives. And you don't want to lay that stuff on people because it will freak the hell out of them. So what you do is you've got to give them that environment to be the best they can be, and that's the way you'll succeed. And that's my message to leadership: people first.
Right on.
Okay, so how are we doing? Does anyone else want to read out something here?
Yes, we have 10 minutes left. I saw a really interesting question from Aga, like, what is your advice on agile coaching in completely virtual setting without prior meeting people face-to-face? I just started a new assignment and I find it hard to meet and greet all stakeholders virtually. I didn't understand if meeting all stakeholders virtually means meeting everyone at once or finding time to actually meet each one of them on one-to-one.
It would be the second one. Yes, I am. It's around
finding time.
Like how do you manage this? You know, when you're in the office, you kind of recognize the landscape quite quickly. You know where to go, who to talk to, who holds the power, who's your main stakeholder. Here, you're kind of restricted to relying on older people telling you that and being kind of willing to tell you that.
So may I chip in on that?
Of course.
So from the beginning, that one-on-one connection, at least for me personally, is key. Not for me to understand the overall context, but to create that connection and that safety with those individuals. Before the team, there are the individuals. So I really start normally on going one-to-one, and then to be able to, and this is, for example, one thing that we learned during our class. You mentioned the physical space. And we had exercises in our class that literally took part of the space, like spatial exercises where people stand, make a difference, especially from a facilitator. We were able to migrate that to online. We were able to grab the canvas that we have, for example, in Mural, and ask people to represent themselves as avatars in the virtual space. So we were able to simulate the physical space mood and behavior on virtual. If your goal is to try to understand how people move in the space, maybe an idea would be, what could you facilitate to that group of people that would simulate that space, behaviors, and connections in the virtual space, and as a facilitator, observe what happens? Because as we said in the beginning, it can be adapted, and you're not on the call with everyone through the whole day to see how things happen. A lot of things happen without you becoming aware because it's happening in another call, asynchronously, in an email. So bringing that stuff to the same space, those people to the same virtual space, and adapt on this simulated environment. And then you can see the power struggles, the dynamics, who is always dominating things, who moves people on people's behalf. That would be my chip in.
Thanks for that. So another thing which I think is also something you were thinking about, maybe is about pull. So as coaches, when we're wandering around the office, we get pulled into conversations, things that happen in the corridors, things that you can see what's going on and you get pulled in. And the immediate thing when we're online is, do I now need to push? You know, how do I get my face in there so that I can be in the meetings? Am I not getting invited in? You know, and why not? You know, what's going on for me as a coach? If I'm not there, how do people know to include me? And I think this is really something which has an underlying sense of how do you value an agile coach? What is the value of being there as an agile coach or as a scrum master? And so many times I've seen organizations and even coaches themselves treat themselves like they're a cost. And we have to kind of somehow justify ourselves and our experience when we're a cost. And this pushing is like a salesperson. So we can't do that because it actually undermines the very nature of a coach. We still need the pull. So really connecting in with the most motivated people. So if you think about the Agile Manifesto, build projects around the most motivated individuals. So we want to connect with motivated people and build connections with them. If you're an external coach, that connection with your most motivated people can give you an avenue into the rest of the organization so that you can continue working. If you're an internal coach, a permanent employee, then again, you've got motivated stakeholders, you've got the reason why you're there, build better connections with those people, make sure that what you're doing and is tangible so that it can go out there through those motivated people so that you're still maintaining that pull. Don't try and revert back to a push. I think that I'm not sure that's what you were sort of alluding to as well. Okay, how long have we got, Rafa? I know. Oh, sorry, Sam, you were saying something.
I was just going to say,
4 minutes.
There's one other question that we skipped over, which was from Darwin, which was, it would be great to hear what techniques have worked best for keeping people engaged in remote training. And yeah, that's also a great question, Darwin, because we know from our experience of training from the back of the room, which is all about neuroscience and how to make training really stick, that you can't really talk in normal circumstances for more than about 10 minutes before people just disengage from what you're saying. And online, we see that magnified. And so the trick is, just like we've done with this meetup, is to really make things interactive. So we use a lot of interactivity, like polls, or the use of Mural to do activities to that really helps keep people's engagement stay up. And the other thing we do in Mural is people engage when they, I feel like I'm saying the word connected over and over again. I'm not obsessed with connection, I promise you, but people engage in material and they can participate in training when they feel connected. And so in the beginning, we had a way of, you know, doing the introduction to the training. But now what we do before every training class is we have a tech setup call. And I think this is really important, because even with clients where we've connected, you know, the previous week, it's really good to check just a day or two before the training, just to make sure that everyone has all the links, everyone knows how to use all the tools. And because we find that a lot of people still haven't used Mural, we'll get them to do a really nice little welcome activity, which is to fill in a 4-grid box to tell us about them, what experience they have and what they really want to walk away from with our training. And just doing that has a twofold benefit. One is they get hands-on with the tools, so they feel so much more comfortable, and so their stress levels are lower, and so their brain is more receptive to the learning. And secondly, by then talking a little bit about themselves, we not only establish kind of equal voice, but also everyone starts to feel like they know each other a little bit. So I think those 3 kind of tips. One is slice your content up into much smaller slices and have a little interactive spot. Give people the chance to connect before an important meeting or a training, so that you can make sure that everybody is comfortable that they can connect. And 3, do a proper introduction activity. Because I think, like with online, whether it's a meeting or a training, you as facilitator just have to hold a much stronger container. So I hope that helps. And I wonder if anybody else wants to chip in with anything that they've found online that helps.
Thanks, Sam.
Rafa, you're on mute.
Just giving the signal of 1 minute.
1 minute. Yeah, so Simon just raising that point there on the chat about actually get people moving. Yeah.
So is there anything else that we've missed there in terms of the talk? Otherwise we can wrap it up. I hope, I don't think there's anything else in there, but any other questions or anything? I think we've covered them all. Okay, good. Alrighty. So I hope this has been interesting for you all, and I hope that you've taken something away in terms of usefulness. And we shall wrap it up there. So I wish you all the luck and the experimentation and success in whatever you're doing, so that you can succeed with everything. And I hope that that this lockdown ends soon, so that we've got the choice of whether to stay at home or whether to go back into the office. That's what I miss, is the choice. So thank you very much, and see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Best of luck
bye.
for everyone.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Ciao, Wotan. Ciao, Fabio. Ciao,
Ciao,
Silvana.
Rafa.